Hello and welcome to the Chillville podcast, your weekly dose of all things money and financial in nature. I'm your host Leona.
And I'm Sujit, and welcome to this wonderful journey of learning and inspiration. We hope to carry you along over the next few weeks, once a week, with your daily dose of all things money and finance.
So what are we going to talk about today?
We can talk about different things, Leona. We can have an eclectic mix. Why don't we start with something which is a core question among all millennials? What do you think is the number one question that all of you have when it comes to money?
I think the usual thing that we struggle with is how do we begin saving? Because the fact is that we want to live our lives too because these are our younger years and it's like the best time of our lives, right? We can go out, have fun. And then we are also looking at the fact that, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you always need to have some backup and some money saved up so, you can have a stress-free life. But then you also don't want to miss out on things. So, how do I kind of get over that conflict and begin? Where's my starting point?
Okay, so it's the existential dilemma that I want to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy and have my weekends as if you only live once, and at the same time, I want to have a decent savings of my own also where I can dip into and look at it as something for a rainy day, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think most of us as millennials at some point in time, the main issue has been is that we have a very transactional relationship with money.
Yeah.
Meaning that we see money as a means to an end, something that we use to get the things that we want and pay our bills, and then everyone has some sort of residual amount of money left.
Yeah.
Like you're on the wrong side if you don't have
Except
any money
if you
left.
live paycheck to paycheck, yeah.
Then it's a different story because then we need to talk about how to build the will to save first, not about the habit of saving. That is a totally different category of people. But specifically to your question about how to develop a habit of saving, is I usually find it quite easy when you actually look at these three questions in serial order. One is you need to decide on what percentage for what purpose.
Like in terms of expenses or I'm going to do this fixed 10% saving per month and then the remaining is all my expenses.
That is one way to do it.
Okay.
You can also create multiple buckets by purpose.
So divide this percentage for food, this percentage for shopping. I mean, if you have a percentage for shopping every month, that is...
Some people have, it's like a Amex black card, no limit to shopping. Let's go retail therapy. But yeah, your logic is right. There are 3 or 4 main methods you can use.
Okay.
One is called the envelope system. It's a very simple, dumb, no maths or numericals required.
All
Basically, you buy a series of colored envelopes and whatever salary you get in the month, you just put in X amount bifurcated by the envelope for different purposes. Like, for example, you have a red envelope for anything to do with food. You have a green envelope for anything to do with rent and other expenses. You have a yellow envelope for anything to do with entertainment. You have a black envelope for anything to do with emergencies, and so on and so forth. And in a simple Excel sheet or in a piece of paper, you decide what percentage of allocation you will give from your monthly salary to all of these envelopes. Physically take out the cash and put it into these envelopes.
So physically, not like on an Excel sheet or not like on...
There are two schools of thought about this.
Okay.
One school of thought says that as long as you deal with physical money, the propensity to spend it will be less because you're actually touching and feeling the notes.
Is that why they say that, if you keep bigger notes, it helps you from, spending your money on unnecessary things. But when you have a smaller note, you're mind plays this thing that, oh, it's 5 dirhams, it's 10 dirhams, it's okay. But 100 dirhams, I have to kind of break that amount.
Very true. And it's also more relevant when you're dealing with plastic, because then there's no smaller note or bigger note, there's no note at all.
Yeah, you can't feel that pain of like the money flowing out.
Correct. And at the end of it, you end up taking no note of it, and then it comes into penal charges and otherwise, and so on and so forth. So the first important easy method is to do the envelope method, something like how we used to have piggy banks for different purposes.
Okay.
But then again, there the only thing is you need to have the discipline. Like suppose you have budgeted 10% for eating out or food and beverage in a month.
Yeah.
What happens if you exceed that 10% or the envelope gets
I'll have
exhausted?
to kind of cut down for my remaining envelopes.
Exactly. No, you are not allowed to touch any other envelopes for this purpose. No more eating
So
out
I
in the month.
say no to my friends. I'm not coming out anymore.
That's it.
No.
You have busted your envelope for that purpose for the month.
What if it's like an unexpected birthday party and I have to go?
Well, then you have to plan better. Simple. There is no substitute for discipline in financial freedom.
So this percentage envelope system can differ month by month?
Yes, it can also differ if you get a salary promotion or a raise or something like that. Then you bump up the limits on the envelope.
Or apart from like just the... Okay, so it depends on what income is flowing in. Okay.
Obviously, because you spend from what you receive.
No, but what if like during certain parts of the year, you have Christmas or Diwali or different festivals. So you know that your expenses are going to go high in that particular month. So I bifurcate accordingly in those months. But in the other months, I could probably increase my saving envelope and I can reduce my expenses.
Yes, you're free to alter the permutation combination of the percentages in any way you feel like. But the first important thing you have to understand is, why are you doing what you're doing? What is the goal behind putting this percentage? Especially some people, when they are younger, they want to develop a saving habit, they want to develop an investing habit, which is a bit different from savings. So they actually jump up or bump up the percentages on the saving and investment envelope. For some cases, for example, your food is taken care of at home, you're staying with your parents, you don't have to do anything, and eating out is fairly, like some people, they also have dietary issues, so they can't eat out much.
Okay.
So then that envelope is actually very minimal. In terms of retail therapy or shopping, I don't know about guys, but no idea. Like some people may not want to shop left, right and center. Some people cannot live without shopping left, right and center.
Depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, depends on who you're talking to. Exactly. So different people, different envelopes for different folks. So that's how it goes up and down. Then the second question that we usually get asked is, what is the right way? Now, for example, even if you take the envelope system, what might work for you as a person may not work for your sister or for your brother or for my brother or myself, because we're all different, right?
So then more than the question of what is the right way, it will be, is the right way? Because it might be a different answer for everybody, right?
Yes, and the easiest way, I believe, Leona, to get around this conundrum is to understand why are you putting money into these envelopes in these percentages for? What is your end purpose? It's a bit simpler when it comes to eating out or going and shopping out for your favorite dress or something like that. But when it comes to a long-term goal, like saving up for your education in the future or saving up for an investment corpus which beats inflation and bank rates so that you have a retirement nest egg or something like that.
Yeah.
Short-term gratification goals require less brain work and planning. Mid-term goals require a little more thought. And the long-term ones, typically beyond 5 years, 10 years, like by the time you get married, have your own kids and have your own family, those kind of goals, they take much more deeper thought, especially in economies like today and with situations like today, because with the outbreak of COVID and everything, you never know whether you'll have your job tomorrow. You may not know whether you're healthy enough to go to a job tomorrow and what kind of expenses may be brought about. So everything can go for a toss. So things are evolving. So these are not systems set in stone. They are just intended to be a guide for how you need to lead your financial life in a way, in a systematic way where there is no system at present. But that system is subject to evolve according to your requirements.
So this saving is apart from the whole, oh, I'm saving for a trip. So this is not the saving for a trip. This is saving for something to fall back on in case things don't work
Not even
out.
that. It is a system to give you a guide as to how to perform on a day in day out basis.
All right.
Like if I ask you, why do you brush your teeth? It is one to keep your teeth
It's a
away
habit.
from. It's a habit, and it's something which keeps your teeth safe.
Yeah.
And it is something which keeps people around you. Yeah. So that way, that is the to keep cavities away is the necessity purpose.
Yeah.
And to keep people around you is the social purpose.
Yeah.
So the same way, if I ask you, why do you need to save? Saving for a rainy day is the necessity purpose and the societal purpose both. But as a necessary daily discipline, is something which you need to do for yourself. A lot of people don't understand that small amounts of money saved regularly over a long period
Compounding.
with a different interest rate compounds, and sometimes that can be beyond your wildest imagination. We will deal about it with it in the forthcoming episodes, where you can see some fantabulous illustrations of how things have compounded over time. But sometimes also you have to start somewhere. Like a lot of people, my message to a lot of our listeners is that people get daunted by seeing big figures, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, okay, you're talking about envelopes, you're talking about percentages. What if I don't make that kind of a big salary enough? Because if I make all these envelopes, I'll have nothing left.
Yeah.
So then what do I do? So that can also be a question. And then the next question you need to think about is a common refrain I get from a lot of people, like 99% of my salary goes in paying the bills, and then I'm left with nothing. So is it bills or me first?
Yeah. But I think that question is subjective to each person,
True.
because I think it also depends on the lifestyle you've adopted. If you want to compete with your friends who are probably earning twice the salary than you, then what are you trying to prove, right?
True. I believe a lot of it is to do with the keeping up with the Jonases or the narcissistic act.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, you can't be the richest man in the world or the richest lady in the world, but you can be the most content person in the world if you want to. I would personally respect someone who has the small change when you're traveling on public transport, rather than having millions in the bank. Because if money can't work for you when you need it the most, doesn't make sense having tons in the bank. At the same time, like they say, there's enough in the world for man's need, but not enough for man's greed. So as long as you keep comparing with somebody else, the grass is always greener on the other side. With Corona, one thing we've realized is health is more important than wealth, because you can pop out in a moment's notice. And even big people are getting the coronavirus.
But then that question can play the other way. So I don't know what is going to happen to me tomorrow. So I can live my life to the fullest at this point.
True. But what if you happen to survive tomorrow? Then you're in trouble, right?
We'll see then.
So yeah. See, I would suggest that kind of free, carefree nature is only affordable to those who are extremely extremely wealthy, or extremely resilient, that whatever happens to them they can claw themselves back up.
Okay.
Having been a millennial myself, a bit over the hill now in terms of age, I can tell you that I wish I had the kind of financial discipline that I have now when I was younger, because I would have made it better. I don't think I've done anything wrong in terms of financial decisions in my life so far, but I haven't started saving as early as I wanted to. If I had access to a podcast like this when I was 20, 21, I would have been.
But because of the mistakes that you've probably made is why you've learned so much of what not to do. So is that probably the best way to learn?
I would say the best way to learn is from somebody else's mistake, not from yours.
Not from yours.
Because learning from your mistakes, it will set you back by 3 to 5 years. And it's sort of like, breaking up and moving on. Memories of that will always linger. It's not pleasant. Anytime you think about it, it's like getting punched in the stomach all over again. Like, how could I be so stupid? So it's always best to learn with other people's money and with other people's mistakes, because it's like paper trading. You will see that on the screen. You will feel bad, but it doesn't affect you.
Unless you're an investment banker and you're dealing with other people's money.
True.
Then don't trust that person.
Then yes. But yeah, that's what. Do a lot of reading. What I see in the last 10 years, in the last decade, is that there's a lot of financial information available, much more than what was available in our time when we were schooling and in college. But now that brings with it its own set of challenges, because most of the media outlets are also paid.
So which information do you believe? Do you
What
believe
do you
the books?
trust? What do you trust?
Yeah.
So books are nothing but opinions of the authors at that point of time. Balance sheets, by the same measure, are just post-mortem analyses of what the company's health was at that particular reporting period. And if you look at the news and economic journalists and financial journalists, they are just reporting on stuff that they probably have been paid or pushed with a mandate to report.
Yeah.
Because
but numbers can always be manipulated.
Yes.
And you just see the quantitative side of it and no qualitative.
True. But yeah, this we are talking about a higher, entity of investor or a higher entity of saver. What about people who still don't have a clue? So for them, we need to start with the building blocks.
Yeah.
And especially in this country, most of us are expats. We might lose NRIs or non-resident, whichever nationality you might be.
True, yeah.
You're on a visa, you might lose your job and you have 30 days to leave the country. What do you do? Where do you send your money back? How do you remit? Why do you have to save? In the starting, the first point blank bedrock of everything is how to save, how much to save, why to save. So why to save we covered in the last few minutes, as in we all know that you need it for a rainy day. Then you came up with the dilemma as to how do I have my cake and eat it too. And then we talked about the simple dumb system of the envelope division.
Yep.
And now if the envelope thing is too simple, you can even go for another formula called the SSIDE, where the first S is for saving, where you save for anything you need to do, mandatory savings that can be towards a systematic investment plan or an equity investment or a fixed deposit or whatever you want to. The second S is for spending.
Okay.
This is like anything which goes into your stomach or goes onto your body, or something where you can stay in, whatever is useful for you to carry on with life. So first is save, second is spend.
Yeah.
Then the third part is invest. This you can do for different purposes, like you can put in
long-term, short-term.
Yeah, long-term, short-term, medium-term, shares, stocks, bonds, risky, fixed income, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Generally, if you're smart, you will put it in something which beats inflation and the bank rates. There are plenty of products available,
which we will cover up
in the future podcasts also. Then D is another area where not many people think about. This is donate. So many people who are listening to this podcast will be like, yeah, right, I am the greatest charity case in the world. Like,
charity begins at home.
Yeah, charity begins at home, and not even in my home. It begins with paying myself first, because I hardly have any money left at the end of the month. But
karma?
What I would say is, no, it's not about karma, but my personal experience has been that whatever you make, if you give some amount of it to somebody, it doesn't have to be to a religious institution or to an orphanage or any charity or anything. It can even, and yes, I'm not encouraging that you loan money to your friends and all that, unnecessary. This is not called charity. What I'm saying is people who are needy, even in your family or anybody like that, beyond your immediate circle of relatives, if anyone can really benefit from what you're making, whatever you can afford, say probably 2, 3, 5, maximum 4, 7, 10% in the rums.
And you don't have to announce it to the world.
Yeah, you don't have to announce it to the world. It's not a medal seeking exercise, but you give it and forget about it.
But bringing back to this topic of donation, I have this question. So I tend to usually give money to like the workers, waiters, or this thing. Where, but the thing is, you have this thing in the back of your head. Like, what if they're putting that money to the wrong use? What if they're going and buying?
See, that is a different thing altogether. Your job is to give the money and feel good inside. How it becomes used is not you're not working for the IRS or for checking out the AML trail or whatever.
Yeah.
You have no control over how that money might get used. By the same question, if I turn the table and ask you that question,
I still continue to do it. But then, a lot of the times, I think the whole donate. So, you don't trust with so many of these institutions you probably give money to. but you don't know what's happening later
Fair
on.
enough. Then you have an opportunity to form a trust of your own.
Yep.
In countries like India, if you comply with certain statutory requirement, you can make a trust of your own.
Mm.
And you can donate your own money and you can control everything regarding who it gets used with and what
used to.
happens. Until you get to that level, you have to depend on certain charitable
Yeah,
entities.
yeah.
And yeah, there are tax breaks available also if you do these kind of things. Yeah, it will definitely help you. So that's D for donate. And then E is the most important one, is emergency,
Yeah.
which is basically the emergency fund which you need to create. We will deal about the mechanics behind personal finance and how to create an emergency fund, what is the mathematical equivalent for an ideal emergency fund in the future episodes, because that is in a total different topic by itself.
Yeah, exactly.
So SSIDE, this is one formula that you can follow. And Leona, do you remember what the acronym stands for? SSIDE?
Save, spend, invest, donate, and
Emergency.
Yeah.
So these 5 things, if you remember, along with the envelope system, I think this will more or less cover everything in terms of what you can do with the money you get and how do you develop a habit of saving.
Yeah.
Regularly done consistently over a period of time, this will ensure that you have a budget for every purpose and some amount allocated for every header that every conceivable header.
And what
that you will go through in your
duration
life.
am I looking at? Like, am I doing this for the next 1 year, next 2 years, next 3 years?
I would suggest you do it for as long as you can, because saving and spending are not something which end in 1 year or 2 year or something like this.
Okay, so I struggled with one bit of it when I was doing my own budgeting and, tracking of what my future expenses and savings are. How do I know if my income increases? How do I know if my expenses increases? Like right now, right now I live with my parents. But at a future stage, it will come to a fact that I'll probably have to live alone. And then from what my expenses are right now, it's going to be tripled or maybe even 5 times what I'm spending right now.
Yes, so then you have to look at outlets in terms of how you can earn more or how you can spend less.
Okay. Yeah.
Because only then you can survive. But given the current economic situation, I do not think you will get to a point where you will spend less. So the only possible solution is how do you earn more?
And that's by side hustles.
That's probably by side hustles, yeah. And now we have this thing called the gig economy. So you have a lot of things which you can do on the side. But then again, the smartest in the lot are again those who don't waste their time in the gig economy, because the gig economy is very time consuming. If you can find something.
What do you mean by gig economy exactly?
The gig economy is a generic term given to a lot of these side hustles, right from content writing to virtual assistants to graphic design freelancers and stuff like that, who get paid by the job, by the hour, or by the assignment. They're
like Fiverr and Upwork.
Yeah, Fiverr, Upwork, Freelancer, all these sites have. And you can beyond these sites, there are people who are like having freelance licenses in the UAE also who are doing all these kind of things. But the thing there is that it requires a high level of expertise already accrued and proven. It requires a steady stream of clientele who may or may not pay in advance or may not pay on time. And it also requires you to dedicate substantial number of hours in execution of the assignment after your day job, for which you may not have health or stamina or the freshest of mind to operate, unless you are doing the freelancing.
Unless you cut down on your social life also.
Correct. And then you have to look at what is the opportunity cost trade-off. The smarter thing to do, Leona, in this regard would be probably to look at something which is a hustle but is not so time consuming. Like probably create an ebook. You spend 4 hours creating the ebook.
True.
And then you retail the ebook for $5 or $6. You get 1,000 downloads, you get $5,000 in a week.
But I think there the risk of the execution is higher than here, because it's like a one-off job. But there it requires significant marketing and everything.
The difference there is you're going from a person approach and a process approach to a product approach.
True.
And while the person and process approach will get you your hundreds and thousands, your product approach is the only one which will get you your thousands and millions.
But apart from this gig economy, I think there's this huge other influx of social media influencers, bloggers, vloggers, where they make money from all these social media outlets. But the thing, I think, see, I run a food blog, and the biggest challenge, I don't make money out of my food blog, and it wasn't the intention ever. But even though I do it as a hobby, it's very time consuming because apart from the fact that you have to probably put content out there, you spend time editing your photo, writing your caption, putting the right hashtags, and then, engaging with the followers who are commenting also. You're also making it, you have to keep that constant effort of commenting on other people's photos because that increases your engagement and keeps your social media added. And you don't figure out the fact that you're spending countless number of hours compared to what productive work you could have done. But again, this is bringing in money, so
True. See, how do you define productivity? And nobody said a gig economy is easy. Nobody gives you a free lunch. Money is
Yeah.
not on the table for
yeah,
free.
yeah,
But the idea is that over time, if you get really good at something, replicating that is not really difficult. Because you've done it before, you're just doing iterations of it all over again.
okay,
So the difficulty you had when you did it the first time is not there when you do it the second time and in the successive iterations. Having said that, I think something that millennials have to worry about today is, do you have a skill you can side hustle in your armor or in your inventory?
okay,
Not see, because I see a lot of influx because of this SSIDE. People want to have more money to save, so they're going and taking digital marketing courses, and then they think they've arrived. Just because you have a certification tomorrow morning, okay, Google is there to help you.
yeah.
But just because you're Google certified in XYZ, nobody's going to give you, the money is not going to rain from the sky and tomorrow morning you have all clients. Because there are so many people. Think about what is a very difficult, irreplaceable, unstudyable, competence-based process or productizable skill.
But Sujit, I think the problem is with the amount of resources available and anyone can literally do anything.
Hmm.
It's like the market is already oversaturated in whatever field you want to enter. It's
I wouldn't say so, Leona, because there is always competition everywhere.
Okay.
And with media, it has become accessible for everyone. Like even now, for example, both of us, we hold our day jobs, but we are currently sitting in a studio and doing podcasting. So just because it's a passion of ours.
Yeah.
But the point is there are thousands of other podcasts. How do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack? That differentiation is the premium that your subscriber or your listener or somebody who takes your services or your course will give you. So I think beyond developing the habit of saving and going by SSID also, people need to first think about themselves also as an asset.
Okay.
Have you ever thought of that?
But that goes beyond the whole fact that, your self-doubt or your imposter syndrome. When
Whatever
you
it might
think,
be.
What if I'm not as good enough as someone else?
See, I keep telling people I encounter that they always might be somebody better than you. There always might be somebody worse than you also. But there will be nobody quite like you.
Yeah.
Because you are a unique product. If God could make two of you, he would have done that long time ago. The reason we are all individual and unique is because we are us.
Yeah.
So what is the unique thing about us that is not there in anybody else? The sooner you or somebody else or myself or whoever realizes and decides that, okay, this is my unique skill, and everybody has something that way. I know there are a lot of listeners in the podcast will be like, I haven't discovered what my unique thing is yet. I don't know what my superpower is yet.
It's the same thing when you go to 12th grade and you're like, oh damn, I have to choose a career now. What do I go for?
Yeah. So the sooner you get that, the faster you will be on the superhighway.
Okay.
And then once you start...
And this is... So, do I go about trial and error method? Like, okay, this is not working out. That is working out.
Ideally. So, to recap, one is you need to develop a habit of discipline in terms of finances. Then you need to be prepared for fluctuations and changes in situation. And 3, you need to be able to readjust and reorient according to the fluctuations in situations.
Yeah.
Either by increasing your income through a side hustle or any talent or anything like that beyond your job. Or you need to reskill yourself in a way that you are hyper employable and non-replaceable. Very difficult to do this, but it's possible. Or you need to chronically cut down on your expenses, which is not possible beyond a point, and I do not recommend that also because you are living for living.
Yeah.
You are not living for suffering and living a better tomorrow. There's no point skimping on it beyond a point. So if you remember these three principles, I think more or less we have started our first episode on the right track. We've actually put the bedrock of a great foundation. So in recap, can you recap for us what all we have covered today? Any idea? Do you remember, or do you want me to do it for you?
No, I shall recap.
Okay.
So we started with the whole how do I build that habit of saving? And then we went to the whole envelope method of either doing it physically or doing it through an Excel sheet where you can bifurcate your expenses into different buckets and allocate them based on your spending behavior and build that habit of saving so that it compounds over time. And then going beyond the envelope system, I think we went to this SSIDE.
And beyond that, we also had a thing where we talked about what we could do with side hustles and with how to increase our income and decrease our expenditure during changing circumstances. So I think we rounded up pretty well. And what do we tell our listeners now? How do they reach out to us? What do they need to do? What are our handles like in case they have any queries? Leona will fill you in.
So we've set up all our social media accounts. So you can find us at the Chill Bill Pod on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you have any questions or any topics that you would like us to cover, you can just email us with your questions at askchillbill@gmail.com.
That's ASKCHILLBILL
at Gmail. And if there's any special topic, we shall create a customized episode just for you. So
yeah, and we'll make sure that we'll name it after you. This episode is then dedicated to XYZ who asked us this wonderful query. So until we see you the next time in the next episode of Chill Bill, this is Sujit signing off with Leona from our studios. See you in the next episode on a wonderful journey of learning and inspiration. Until then, bye-bye.